Welcome back to my channel. Let's jump into this Instagram baddie tutorial. So what I've noticed when I checked out all of the Insta baddies on Instagram, the eyebrows are a very important part to the look. So what I'm doing right now is I am taking a NYX, I believe. I'll have all of the products listed down below. But I'm just taking an eyebrow pencil and filling in my eyebrows, just filling in wherever there are some sparse spaces and really trying to get that shape kind of created. And that's what I'm doing, just filling in the sparse spaces and making sure the top line as well as the bottom line is as straight and as even as we can possibly get them to be. So yeah. And now I'm going to be taking the MAC Eyeshadow Embark, and I'm also using I'm not sure, I think it's an eyeliner brush from Ulta. I'll have that in the description box as well. But what I like to do is I like to use some of that MAC Embark and then really just kind of complete that shape. So I'm not doing it super heavy, however, it's not super light either, somewhere in between, and I'm going to want to grab that shadow and start making an even straight line both on top as well as on the bottom to give them that really angular, sharp, clean looking feel to it, if that's what you want to call it. So I'm just making sure that everything is even and looking good, and now I know you're thinking, oh my goodness, you are still doing that crazy concealer thing. I'm sorry, I'm so guilty of it. I just really like the way that it looks, but one thing that I do instead of putting the concealer on after I've already had my foundation on, I like to put the concealer on before everything. And I also like to let my concealer set into the skin because I feel like when the concealer sits on the skin for a while, it just gets better pigmentation overall. So now what I've done is I've taken the Maybelline Color Tattoo, I'll have the name below, and I'm using that as my base. It's so pretty, I love it so much. And now I've just grabbed a light orange and a light dusty pink color, mixed them together, and I'm using that all over my lid. This is going to be a very pretty lid look. I wanted something kind of pink because today we are going to be using red glitter, so I thought yes for this shade. And I'm taking this fluffy brush and just going back and forth to kind of diffuse that color. And now I took a very light neutral shade from the Anastasia Beverly Hills Artist Palette. It's called Buttery, and I'm placing that over my lid color just because I wanted it to be a tad bit more muted. So that's what we had over there, and now I'm going to be taking a mauve color and then a more burnt kind of pinky mauve color. All of these colors that I'm using from that big palette are actually blushes, but I just love their colors. They're so pigmented. I said why not on the eyes. So I'm just popping that in my crease, really kind of just laying the color down with this flat shader brush. I'm not really doing much blending, and now I'm grabbing that fluffy brush and I'm going back and forth blending that crease out, and then once I get to the edge, I'm kind of pulling it upwards, making a little V right there. I don't know if you can see that, but I just want the outer corner to lift just a tad. And now I'm taking a dark purple shade from the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, and I also mix that in with a bit of my deeper mauve-y pink crease color that I had. I mixed those two together, and I'm just going to place that color a bit lower than I had my original crease color. I'm kind of lifting up my eyebrow and putting it like not directly in my crease, just a tad bit below, so that way when I blend up to the next shade, it'll have a really cool gradient effect. So I'm just blending all of that out with my little flat shader brush, and now I'm taking the big fluffy brush and just kind of melding the two together to get that really pretty blended effect. And then, like I said, with the outer V, I'm still keeping that motion, kind of just pulling it out a little bit and making it into that high V shape. Alright, now it is time for glitter. I don't recommend doing this, but I don't have any glitter glue on hand. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my lash glue, this is the Eyelure lash glue, and I just put it on the spots of my eyelid where I want the red glitter to be. And now I've just dipped my little pinky in there and packed it on. I'm doing the same thing for the right side. And like I said, I don't recommend using lash glue, but if it's all you have, just be really careful with it and make sure not to get it in your actual lashes or near your eyes, because that can really irritate your eyes. So now what I'm doing, I have placed the glitter on both of my eyes. I'm picking up a Dusty Rose shade from the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, and I just put that on the bottom, and now I've taken a round, kind of blunt brush and just dipped a small bit into the black shade in the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, and I'm only putting that in the lower V corner of my eyes. And now I've used tape because a lot of the Insta Baddies have winged liner. I personally am not a huge fan of wing liner on myself, so I don't do it quite a bit, and I want to make sure that these wings look nice and crisp, so I have some tape under my eyes. Another thing I don't really recommend because it does pull on the very sensitive thin skin underneath your eyes. So I don't recommend that. I'm just breaking all of the rules today, honey. So yeah, I've just taken that eyeliner brush that I used for my brows, dipped that in the black shade of the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, and I did get my brush wet before I dipped it into the eyeshadow to make it a bit more pigmented and help me move that product around a bit. So as you can see, I do have my right eye going, and now I'm working on the other eye, just making sure everything is even and looking good. And I like to take my liner when I do wing liner all the way into my inner corner and give it that really defined, pretty start to the line, if you will, from my inner corner. So now that's all good. I'm taking the Maybelline Colossal mascara and just coating my lower lash line as well as my top lash line a bit. And now I'm taking an e.l.f. black eyeliner, just very generic, you can use whatever you like, and putting that in my lower lash waterline. Now I'm taking the NYX Orange Corrector, and I believe the name of it is Medium, and I'm just putting that wherever I have some purpley pigmentation under my eyes. I do kind of suffer from that, but I really like that corrector that they came out with. So now I'm just applying my foundation with a stippling brush. This is the Maybelline Fit Me foundation, the Dewy one. I just love this formula, and this color for me is so spot on. So I'm just applying that and making sure to now kind of wipe away that concealer and mix it with a foundation so you don't get that heavy, cakey concealer look right above your brows, but it still is a bit more highlighted than it would be. And I'm just taking my fingers and going over any places where it may be streaky or patchy, because I do actually need a new stippling brush, so this baby's on her last leg. And now just taking that color down to the neck, because we want our neck to always match our face. And I'm taking the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer in the shade 10 or Light, and I'm just putting that guy under my eyes as well as on my chin and my Cupid's bow. And I am now going to highlight my nose, do a little dot, and I don't like to make the big tree branches on my particular forehead. I like to go just straight across, and I'm going to let that nose sit there a little bit longer than the rest of my face. I also like to use my fingers to blend out my concealer because I just love how it works with the product. I like to use a patting motion, and I feel like it doesn't take too much of the product away, but it still does blend out beautifully. So I'm just making sure the line, My winged liner is cleaned up and the edges are very crisp, doing the same thing on this side. And now I'm just going to go ahead and use a sponge for my Cupid's bow area as well as my chin. And now I am taking MAC translucent powder, and I'm going to use that as my baking powder today. I'm not putting a ton on, but I do want to bake my under eye because the Instagram baddies definitely have baked under eyes. So I'm going to do that as well as do that to my Cupid's bow area as well as my chin. Now, since my nose has set for a while, I went ahead and blended that in. And now I'm using the Maybelline Fit Me Stick Foundation in the shade Coconut, and I'm going to be using this as a cream contour. As you see, I'm just taking a tad bit on my ring finger and putting that on the sides of my nose, a bit on the nostril area, a bit underneath my nose, and I'm just cutting that nose to make a button nose. So I'm going to let that sit while I blend out the rest of my face. I like to start with my jawline. It doesn't really matter where you start, that's just my personal preference. And now I'm just blending my cheek contour in, making sure everything is blended, and definitely making sure to blend the top portion all the way into my hairline, so it is a seamless contour. And now what I'm doing is I'm working with any concealer that has still been left on my nose, and I'm blending that out very carefully with my finger because I don't want to make the product move and widen. And now I'm just using my finger as well to work with the contour shade. And now I'm going to be baking my nose with that same MAC translucent powder, and I'm just going to let that sit for a while. And I'm going to grab my blush brush and the MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in dark, I want to say. I will have that down for sure in the description box. And I'm just going over the places where I put that cream contour. So it's going to be on my cheeks, on my chin, all the way down to my neck, as well as on my forehead. And now I'm taking a smaller brush, I believe this is from Clinique, and I grabbed a blush color from that big palette, it's more purpley, and I'm just putting that as close as possible to my ear and about halfway down my cheekbone, as well as on the bottom of my nose. And that's just a shade that I like to use to kind of give my contour more dimension and more depth. And now, since I finished with everything, I'm going back with that MAC Translucent, and I'm just subtly cutting the contour and making sure everything looks good. And now I have my big MAC Fluffy brush, and I'm brushing away my under eye baking, as well as the baking that I had going on my nose. And now it looks like I am taking a fluffy brush and just using that MAC Mineralized Skin Finish on my nose, blending the sides as well as the tip of my nose, and making sure that button is still looking like a button. Now I've taken a MAC blush and I am just putting that on the cheeks and then blending that back into the contour. And I also do like to take my blush and put it on my temples and kind of where I put my contour shade near my hairline. So now I'm putting a shade by Anastasia, Buttery, on my brow bone, and now I'm putting a silvery sparkly shade in my inner corner as well as on top of that buttery shade. Now taking this beautiful MAC highlighter, I love it so much, let's go ahead and take a bath in it. I'm just putting that on the areas that I'd like to highlight, like my cheekbones, my little button nose, my nose, a tad bit on my forehead, as well as a bit on my chin and my Cupid's bow. And now we're going to be lining our lips. This is the MAC Spiked Lip Liner, and I am going to be overlining my lips just to make them appear a bit bigger and fuller. And now I'm going to be taking my Jeffree Star Cosmetics liquid lipstick in Celebrity Skin. I love him and I love his liquid lipsticks. The formula is amazing and the colors are so bomb. So And now I'm just wiping away that bake I had under my contour line. And there you have it. There's the Insta Baddie look I created. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Remember, you are all beautiful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!